All right, we are live. Hello, America. Hello, Paris, Texas. Hello, Oakley, Kansas. This is Justin at Seeking Context, and I'm speaking today with Cory Jones and Melissa Doorman Jones, who was my grade school and high school classmate in Oakley, Kansas, about their experience coming to Paris, Texas, and leading the CF Paris, which is a beautiful church. We're sitting in the lobby of the church, and Melissa and Cory came to Paris about 8 years ago, and they started when this congregation had about 40 people, and today it serves over 1,000
between online and in person. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm interested to learn about your journey and learn about what's happened to you since we saw each other in high school and one time at a 10-year reunion.
Yes.
So anyway, just to start with, welcome to the podcast, and I'm interested in learning about a week in the life of Melissa and Cory Jones at CF Parish. Like, what do you do? How do you lead a church of 1,000 people?
Well, first of all, thank you for coming to Paris, Texas, to see me, to see us, and to see our life. It's so cool to catch back up with you. I don't know. Do you want to start a week in the life?
Go ahead. There's some interesting ways to go with that one.
There is. One joke would be that we only work 1 hour a week.
Sunday mornings.
From 10 to 11. But that is not the truth. That's not reality. A day in the, or like a week in the life, we have our favorite day is Sunday, when, you know, all of our people are gathering here in one space, and we're able to be with them and, you know, hug them and connect with them and face to face, and just worship together.
Yeah, and you do the music.
Yes, I do the music, the worship leader, and on Sunday. So I have a fantastic team of musicians, a band, that we meet and rehearse a couple times a month. Mm-hmm. And so that is part of it. We also have a fantastic team of staff members that we meet with on Tuesday mornings. And we debrief the last, service, and we try to fix things, or we just communicate about what happened and who we met and, what's going on. And each department kind of, relays what's going on and where the needs are. And then from there, it's really about, of course, we have preparation, of course, preparing for the next week and choosing music and working on that and researching and studying. And Cory's, always studying and preparing for the next week, a sermon. But other than that, we're just here for the community and the people, and that never stops. So people reach out to us, and we reach out to people, and it's not a one-day thing. It's an everyday thing, and it's a 24/7 thing, So.
Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty of what you said about Sunday mornings. The reason we love Sunday mornings is the relationships.
Yeah.
And so relationships don't grow though based on one day. They grow based on every single day, and that's the same for everybody. And so recognizing strengths that we have, but then also being willing to recognize weaknesses that we have. And I think anytime the church has seen I don't want to call it a plateau, but like just kind of a lull in growth or excitement, it's usually because I've become inundated with the business and forgotten the reason behind the business.
The people.
Mm-hmm. And so the more that we stay involved with people, which I think that's what we're all supposed to do. It's just, it's never easy with life.
Right. Well, when you started, you said that there's maybe 30 or 40 people on a good Sunday.
Yes.
They would be able to socially distance in this space.
They sure would.
How did the leadership responsibilities and like what you do on a day-to-day basis differ from when you had 40 or 50 people a week to when you have 500 people a week?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we grew. Initially, it was just mainly the two of us. So there was a couple other individuals who were already here that were helping out with certain things. But when we started, as it grew, there's more responsibility. And as we took on that responsibility, it limited the potential for the growth. And so recognizing areas that we needed help in, and then quite honestly, it was a step out in faith. There were too many times when we couldn't afford to offset that workload that one of us was doing, but
You mean like to hire somebody?
Correct.
yeah.
Right.
But at the same time, if we didn't, there would be no potential, no chance for any more growth. And so it would be bringing somebody in and just trusting God that, okay, this is in alleviating this one area that I'm not as good at. Now they're taking it, they're running with it. It's only going to benefit the whole of everybody.
When do you draw the line between the asks of a volunteer and a person that becomes an employee? Because a lot of churches I've seen, they got one person that's on payroll, and that's the pastor.
Yeah.
And they still have dozens of people helping out on Sunday
Yes.
and throughout the week. Like,
Yeah.
when do you need to hire somebody?
Right.
That's a tough one in that. I mean, it really does kind of gauge on who that individual is and their own abilities, and then recognizing strength versus weakness in areas where they could grow better if they were willing to allow somebody else to come in and help. Now, volunteers, we love our volunteers. I think every church does.
Yeah, that's the only way we can do what we do as well.
Right.
And yet, it's very easy to burn out your volunteers because you're just not mindful of one person that you keep calling and asking to do everything.
Right.
So at some point in time, you've got to kind of recognize, okay, am I milking somebody, or am I encouraging them and building them up? And then recognizing, okay, do I need to bring somebody on as a hire, or at least stipend to my volunteers? Give them hey, we really do appreciate you. I mean, pep talks are great, but there's substance to honor. And so when you're going to talk to somebody and tell them, I really appreciate you, it means something to be able to give a gift as well.
Well, and also, this is a family. So we liken it to, hey, you're a member of a family, and we all play a part. Every family member plays a part. And some people, everybody does things different, like different things, the way they serve, and serves in different areas. But we always, say, hey, if you're a member of this family, let's help stack chairs after the service, or let's do this, or because that's what family does. We help each other out.
Right. Well, so in Yuval Harari's book, Sapiens, he talks about like the maximum natural size of a group that can be based on personal relationships is about 150. So you've got like 10 times that here. You can't, I assume you don't know all 1,000 people on an individual basis.
Correct.
How do you maintain a sense of community when you grow beyond something that you can nurture personal relationships yourselves?
And even tying back to your last question, one of the struggles I had with the growth, the extreme growth, the quick growth of the church, was that when there were 40, I felt like I could handle it. We could handle it, And then there was people coming, and we didn't get to meet them. We couldn't get to that person, and we felt a burden because they matter to us, but we couldn't get to them. We couldn't meet them, and so. That's when you're a family member, you look to who's new, and it's your job to help welcome them in too, and to get to know them and build relationships and connect. But that was the hard part for me. But
yeah, well, and with any large church, the only reason I think the only way any large church could maintain or continue to grow is if they have communities or smaller groups, like you're saying. 150 is even large, because within 150, and our first lull in growth before we had to truly bring in somebody to hire was right at 150.
it's right there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was kind of our number.
All right. Data point.
Yeah.
Nice.
Supports the theory.
And in bringing somebody else in now, but what it does, it doesn't just double your ability. When we work together, I believe it compounds your abilities. So if you bring in one more, now it's not 300. Now you have the potential of 400. Now that's a lot, but within that, you can't maintain those large numbers unless you also have the involvement, people feeling like they belong, and unless you create spaces where where they can maybe not necessarily, they don't get to meet me, but they get to meet other people, or they get to meet people, get introduced to people, create relationships where you're, encouraging one another daily. And then as well, we do try, because it's our passion, we do try and create situations, once a month or something, where we have hey, here's going to be a new members, or a new people group. If you wanted to come and sit in, we're going to come just say hi to everybody. We're going to teach you what we're all about. Just, for 30 minutes, kind of just explain who we are in a nutshell. And yet give us the opportunity to say hello and connect. But then from there, it really is a matter of connecting with other people and maintaining that small church feel, even in a large church space.
Right. Well, when you decided to come to Paris, this was a congregation of 40 people. The pastor that was leading it, he was ready to leave, or needed to for medical reasons, I think. But I've not seen a community that has more per capita churches. I mean, I'm driving in and I saw there were 3 churches all in a row with no parking lots between them.
Correct.
And you decided, somebody asked you, I understand, to come and lead this group, but in a town with 100 churches, that small group could have gone to those other churches. What made you decide we should come in and lead this? Because you were at a larger organization before, right?
Yes.
Yes, we were. It was like a sister relationship church. But that was one of the struggles that we both had in moving up here, was why would we move here and invest into 40 when those 40 could easily, there's 120 other churches at the time. Just within just within the circle of where we live. And our thought was, tell them to, let's encourage one of these other churches. But I don't want to negate the work that other churches are doing in this area. But I think one of the things that we learned was there was a lot of people that were either jaded towards the church, or we're kind of in this mindset of it's R4 and no more. We're not going to grow. We're not going to build, because, and so it was, again, not all churches are like that, but in moving up, one of the things that we real quickly saw was there was a need for relationship, which to me, as I look through scripture from Genesis to Revelation, the whole book is a love letter from God about relationship. His relationship to us, but then also our relationship to each other. And I dare say, maybe even more importantly, that may sound like heresy, but if my relationship with Jesus is all about just me and him, I've missed his whole point. My relationship with you, my relationship with others is what Jesus said is so important. Go into all the world, share the good news. And so I think there's been levels where we've had to kind of maintain, what are we going to do here or there, but you have to develop relationship.
And other than that, and besides that, we just followed our gut. We didn't know. We didn't know. I didn't know where Paris, Texas was, and I knew it was closer to my mom and dad in Kansas. So I was like, well, that cuts the trip in half. So that's a bonus. But we just followed our gut. There was, and I shared the story with you, that we came up one time when we brought the kids. He brought myself and the kids up, and we visited this little church when he was sharing on one weekend. And there was something about it, and I couldn't explain it. It was just something I had to experience. And we were pulling out of the parking lot after that Sunday service was over, and we were driving up north to Oklahoma to spend Thanksgiving with my sister and her family. And I looked in the rearview mirror and I just saw it was something like out of a movie. I know it sounds really cheesy, but like tears just started streaming down my face. And I thought, there's got to be more to this story than what just happened here. These people, this place, I've never experienced like this before.
That was the first time you'd ever been to Paris?
Yes.
That weekend?
Yes. And he'd been several times.
I've been, but again, what I said about Paris, we probably didn't even realize most of that until after we had moved here.
Oh, yeah.
The initial move was just based on, we don't know why, but we know this is right.
Yeah. So it was just kind of like a leap of faith, and you just step out and you just rely on not what you know, but who's guiding you, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so we just trusted it, and we jumped and landed here. And as soon as we landed here, it was like on. Like, it was just on. We just dove into the community, dove into the people, and started putting down roots. And of course, our kids were in grade school and preschool age, and the rest is history. I mean, we were welcomed with open arms, because we really wanted to be a part of this community.
Yes, well, and that was in the many times that I'd already previously been up here. One of the things that people were quick to tell me is I'd kind of go into town and try and visit a coffee shop or just kind of visit around. They would say, "Oh, Paris is very cliquish. It's very and
You're either a Parisian or a parasite."
Yeah.
Right?
But what we learned fairly quickly is the people that felt excluded from groups were the people that weren't bothering to actually, and not all, I'm going to offend somebody, I'm sure.
I know, it's just,
But they weren't bothering to come outside of their house and trying to be involved in the community either. And so, yeah, if you're not going to get involved, you're not going to develop those relationships. And so as soon as we just got involved, our daughter was, as soon as we moved to town, our oldest daughter at the time joined one of the community theater plays. So we immediately started doing just stuff within the community, and people, this town especially, when they know that you're for them, not just there to preach at them, it changes perspective. It changes opportunities.
Right. What kind of events do you get involved in when you're trying to? I don't know if you're really trying to ingratiate yourself in the community or just become part of it.
Yes.
But like, what are those things when you move to a new town that made it work for you? Is it different plays?
Well, for sure, the school, the kids were a big part of that, and the community theater, and this is a very artsy music. There's a huge community of very talented musicians and artists and designers and creators and mom and pop shops. So just kind of getting involved and meeting those people, and getting involved that way.
And for any community, I would assume it'd be completely different. For ours,
yes.
We came into Paris and we saw some of the needs that we saw and some of the areas where people loved to be involved in, and that's just kind of what we thought. Okay, let's join in. Let's be a part of what's going on here.
Yes.
And
Not necessarily recreating the wheel, but just hopping on what's already going on, the different nonprofits and the different services, and jumping in where we can help feed people, and jumping in where we can help clothe people, and that's what we did.
Cool. Well, so if we step back a little farther, like your young adult years, or maybe even before that, like how did the two of you, I assume independently, get involved in a life of ministry as a profession?
As a profession, I never wanted to. I mean, growing up, I never knew exactly what I wanted to be, but I was certain, absolutely not, I would never be in ministry. I mean, it was a flat out. I was hoping either a pilot or a lawyer, but I said absolutely not as far as ministry. And then I still remember vividly the day where I felt like I heard an audible voice. I mean, there was no audible voice. It was just this moment where I truly felt like I heard God say, "You're going to go into ministry." And I fought it. I fought it for years.
How old were you when that experience happened?
I want to say I was probably 18, 19. And I'd been involved in church my whole life. My parents grew up, taking us to church. And so I had been helped out with the worship team or helped out with, whatever. But 18 or 19, I felt like I heard that. And I'd go to Bible college, but I'd also fight it and start looking for jobs outside and say, I don't want to, really bother with this. And so it was a struggle for a while. Even into after we got married, I was still going part-time ministry, but then we both were. We were doing part-time ministry while working steady jobs outside of that, which again, I mean, that's necessitated in a lot of small churches. But for us, I knew I was going to be miserable if I didn't as much as I was trying to pursue all these other things, if I didn't just drop it and say, okay, I'm going to step into full-time ministry, regardless of, I don't know if it'll ever pay me, I don't know if it'll ever work out. I mean, if I don't step into it full-time, I'm going to be personally miserable, and that's not the husband that she needs, nor just the individual that I need to be.
And is it what really is fulfilling about it? Is it like you enjoy speaking in front of people, or is it just relationships?
I hate it.
You hate speaking in front of people.
I'm not good at it. Well, I say I'm not good at it. It's not
No, you're excellent.
It's not something that I'm comfortable with. I've gotten more comfortable. Palm sweats. I mean, there's stuff going on inside my body that we don't need to discuss. I'm
Like you're already nervous for tomorrow?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yes. But as terrifying as it was, it's still so gratifying to be able to, and through relationships, encourage people, build them up, and give them more than just hope for today. There needs to be a hope that's so much bigger than just contained on a Sunday morning. And so to get to be a part of people's eternity, it's daunting, but at the same time, it's awesome.
Yeah. And you were working in Oakley
Yes.
before you guys met?
Yeah.
And not in ministry?
No, well, just part-time helping, volunteer, pretty much.
Is that over Gateway or?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And and I was raised in the church with mom and dad, and they brought us up, which I'm so grateful for, that, a lot of people that attend our church, they didn't have the upbringing that we had. And so I'm so grateful for what my parents, did to get us there, and hopefully something sunk in. But yeah, as an adult, I was back in Oakley, and I was always in the music. My dad led the music at the church at the time, and I played piano and sang with him. So until I left for college, and that was always a part of growing up. And then when I came back to Oakley to work at the bookstore and get involved in the community there as a young adult, which I guess has always been in me, just to be a part of whatever community I'm in. I volunteered. I did music there. I helped with youth and stuff like that. But it was all pretty much just part-time. And then we met, and then...
And how did you guys meet?
A mutual friend, right? He was a traveling preacher, evangelist / missionary. Am I getting this right?
Yeah.
He came to our church every year,
Came to Gateway Church Fellowship in Oakley.
Yes, came to Gateway, which it was called something else then, but yes, Gateway Church. And every year he would come, and so I knew him for several years, 8, 9, whatever years. And I was young adult, single, and one time he came, and he's like asking people to come down to Saltillo, Mexico, to the orphanage on this missions trip. It's like, sure, I can go. So I'm going, I'm talking to him, and he's like, we're in the airport on the way. And he's like, I've got someone for you to meet. I was like, really? So my interest was perked because I had just I didn't know that part of my life, that was on hold. That part of relationship part of my life was on hold. I was more into business and, community and all that.
Making an identity in your 20s.
Right.
That's what we all do.
Like, what am I? What am I going to be? Who am I? As an individual. And long story short, he was working for him at his missions organization at the time in Colorado. And he was at the orphanage. I went down to paint murals, and he was there leading worship. A big youth group from the Dallas-Fort Worth area had gone down. And when I arrived at the orphanage, he was leading all these people. And of course, I'm so musically inclined, and I was drawn to that. And I was like, what? Who is that? And it was with the
You're a
person.
musician as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The guitar?
Guitar.
Okay,
This is
One
yes.
gave it away.
Okay.
This guitar.
Okay.
Yeah, guitar, and he sings as well.
Okay, so massive charm is happening.
Massive,
Oh.
massive charm. I'm like,
He's working at an orphanage playing guitar in front of hundreds of people
yeah.
in Mexico.
Yeah, it was like all
Sold.
the stars aligned, and I was like, oh, so okay, you do see me, you know that I am right here. And then I don't know, long story, but that's how we met.
Yeah.
The rest is
And
history.
So she's also an artist, went to school doing art, and is a phenomenal artist. And I can't make a stick figure
Thank you.
look like it's legit. I mean, I'm terrible at art, but that weekend, I asked her to help me. I heard the same gentleman had been a lifelong friend of my family. And so he had as well kind of told me, hey, there's this girl I want you to meet. She does play the piano. And so I use that as an excuse. I'm like, hey, would you be willing to, play some keys for me so I don't have to, play the guitar the whole time? And there was one song I asked her to sing. It was Hungry by Vineyard Worship at the time. And she played it and sang it. And at that moment, I was just like, wow, this is it. And so I then followed her around thinking that I could show her my art skills. And so I painted murals on the wall of that orphanage that kids today still don't know what is up there. It was terrible.
This is impressionist.
Maybe.
It was at best.
Makes for a good story then.
Yeah. Cool. And so you guys moved to Oakley, and then the first time you went together to a ministry was in South Texas.
Yes.
Is that right?
After we met, it was about 6 months, a year to the day we met, we were married in Oakley. And we lived there for almost a year. Our first year together, we were both serving at Gateway. We were doing youth music, and then he was working at Farmer State Bank in Oakley, Kansas, and I had the Olive Branch Books and Gifts, book and Bible and gift store, and I had a custom frame shop that I was doing custom framing for the town. And then, like what he said, he was like, but he was miserable, and I was in my hometown. I had my people, I had my parents, I had my community, I knew everybody, it was safe, and I was good to go. He was miserable. Not that he hated it, but just the calling on his life that he knew that he had been pushing.
Well, we were so comfortable. That was kind of more what made me so miserable.
Yes.
It was this place where I knew we weren't reaching out to truly what we both felt like God was telling us was what we were supposed to do.
Kind of like there's got to be more.
There's more to.
There's more.
Oakley doesn't need you.
Yeah, right.
And not even that. Because there's so much going on even in Oakley.
Oh,
It doesn't matter whether small town, large town, mega town. There's stuff going on everywhere. We just felt like God has something else for you, but we were comfortable where we were at. We were good being, we were both helping Chris Doorman out with the worship. We were both helping out with the youth. We were leading youth. We were comfortable. It was good. But it just wasn't what we knew God had for us.
Right.
And I mean, in stepping away now, Gateway is doing, there's Kyle's back in there. Kyle was in our youth group at the time.
I mean, watch it. And Brandy, and they both worked in my bookstore. And so it's so cool to see what they're doing.
Kyle and Brandy are they are the leaders at the Gateway community.
Yes.
Yeah. But you're saying they were in your youth group. You were their youth leaders.
Kyle was, and then they worked for us. And the book,
donut magnate.
He's just beyond.
It's pretty cool.
And so many other cool things that are happening in the community, which is so exciting. But then, so we were called to South Texas, which is his hometown in Harlingen, Texas, which is 20 minutes from the border of Mexico. This girl, I was like, my parents were like, where are you taking my daughter?
I'm certain her parents hated me for the
very
first
familiar.
time.
He was very familiar with it, but I was like, okay.
Well, it was where I was born and raised.
Yes.
Just to kind of be full circle and coming back. But yeah, it's a whole other
I will
culture.
take you to my hometown.
Yes.
I'll show you. Well,
Yes.
So did you get a job offer there, or did you just move back with an intent to hope to get a job?
So there was one of the churches that I had grown up in. a new pastor had come in, but it just happened to be, I went to Bible college in Louisiana and worked at a boys' home. I was a camp counselor while attending Bible college, and the individual that ran all that was now the pastor at the church I used to attend down in South Texas. And so we called him up, or he had been talking to me, and I'd also been talking to our this other guy that introduced us. They were kind of spiritual mentors to me. And there was never a job offered. In fact, it was kind of more said, we don't necessarily have anything, but if you'll come on down, we'll see what happens. Yeah.
So a little dicey.
It was very dicey.
Real.
I don't know that I'd put anybody through that moment. But for us, it really was just this step of faith. Again, this moment of, okay, you're comfortable. You've both got great jobs. You've both got a great ministry. Are you going to continue here, or in feeling like God's calling you out to someplace else, are you willing to just say, okay, I don't know how this is going to work out? And there were trials and hardships. I mean, a bunch, but through it all, there was just a peace that we had that we know, okay, we're following what we believe God has called us to do. And so we went down there, and it wasn't too long after moving down there that there was a job opened up within the church, and I was able to come on. But yeah, it was trying,
right,
at first.
Did your experience? So you're an assistant at that church. Did you do music there as well?
I did music there and kind of creative arts and events, and we wore a lot of hats. We learned a lot of departments of the ministry in the confines of a church. Mm-hmm. We were mentored well. It was a great learning foundational season of our life.
It was a large congregation?
It was.
Okay, so that sort of, I would assume, prepared you in some ways for the growth that eventually came here.
Yeah,
yes,
for sure.
Although we weren't leading it.
Right.
We were under the radar. We were support staff. Mm-hmm. So it's a whole different thing to be leading it and have people looking at you.
Well, now that you've led a church through a big period of growth, did you have like misconceptions about like what would be important? Like before you set out in the ministry, or before you set out to lead a church, I thought, I think these are the important things, and this is what I'm going to be doing. And it turns out that there's a different set of circumstances and requirements to be a good leader.
Yes, I think in the beginning, if I'm just speaking for myself, I thought that we needed to create so many programs. We needed programs, and we needed big events, and we needed to do this and this and this, and we needed to do all these things to be successful and to help people and to provide all these different things for them.
Programs like performances, or meaning like child care?
Well, there's basic needs of the church, childcare, and we're looking at our wing or childcare wing over here. But for me, it was like we need to have all these groups that people can be a part of. We need to have all these huge events. Like we need to put on programs, and we need to do that. I wish I could be more specific right now, but it's just lost. But what it came down to, go ahead.
No, I think. And this is, I'm going to say just my opinion, but I think church, we've created this idea where it's the pastor's responsibility. And even pastors have kind of created this, you got to come to me to learn anything or to be a part of anything. And so with that, then the burden of everything starts to fall on just one, and one person can't handle that. Scripturally, it doesn't ever say you have to go to this man to hear from God. It says we all do. So me personally, and many churches are different, but me personally, I don't feel it's my responsibility to create all these. Okay, well now I'm gonna create a young men's group. I'm gonna create an older men's group. I'm gonna create all these different functions so people can feel like they have a place.
Right.
My job is to encourage people to rise up and do that. We've placed the responsibility of even, we call salvations, and that's one of the things that I think a lot of people question me about, like, Cory, how come you don't have an altar call every service? I'm like, well, it's not my responsibility. I'm going to present an opportunity for you to bring friends in, but then those friends, they don't know me from anybody. Why would they come to me or hear me? I'm going to give them a great message, but then it's your responsibility to, when they say, hey, what was he talking about with this? That's what relationships are.
To talk with them, to pray with them, and go back to the programs. Like, I felt at the beginning, I was going to have to we were going to have to create all these things and then follow up with all these things and just juggle no. What I've learned is that we need to create space and encourage people and for them to rise up and connect with others, like Cory said. But we need to focus on what we do well and do that and keep it simple, because the gospel is simple. Life's not simple, but the gospel is simple. And the older I get, I want things to just be simple.
So those programs exist in a grassroots way.
Yes.
This is how it's really evolved.
Yes.
Well, and I think a great example would be when we first got up here, it was the two of us that would lead worship together.
Mm-hmm.
And I love music. I love playing. I love that part of it. I'm not uncomfortable with that's just kind of natural and easy. But what I realized as well is there were people that could do, and maybe not to start as good a job as I thought I was doing, but they could do as good a job and increase it even better if I would take the time just to step out. But because I was so confident in myself, so arrogant that I needed to be up here and I needed to be a part of this, and it had to be about me presenting, I was limiting more people than what was at play. By stepping out, it allowed for other people to rise up and to take it even further or better than I ever could have. I mean, the worship team now is amazing. And I'd like to say it's because I quit. I mean, I still like to get up there and enjoy it, but for the most part, people needed to be able to step into that role. And as long as either one of us are just trying to fill that role in people's lives, nobody else has to step up. There's no room for growth.
That's cool. Well, so this is a large facility. You have a large congregation. How did you, I guess, raise funding to build such a large facility and kind of make the decision with your congregation that, hey, we should grow beyond the walls that we started with?
Mm-hmm.
Every church gets comfortable. And what I've always told our people is, as long as there's anybody else in the community who isn't involved in a church, doesn't know Christ, or just doesn't have a relationship with other people, then we're not big enough. Again, it's not about numbers. It's not about, we have this many here. It's about within your community, are there people that are still hurting? If so, then your job's not over. It's not done. You're not big enough. And so what are you doing to reach those? And so, in growing, I mean, that was, I hate to say selling point, but the people along with us, we all just knew there's more within the community and we can't continue to think that we can stay at this size without, or we know we need to reach people. So we can't do this in the current facility we're in. We can't do this where we're at. What does that then mean? What does that then translate? And then building this, our whole vision and thought when we penciled it onto a napkin was, let's create a community space. We don't want to build another church, spend that kind of money for something that's open on a Sunday morning. And so we wanted to create a community space where 7 days a week, people could utilize that facility, whether people within the church wanting to do a small group or, those community groups or Bible teachings, or if people just wanted to get together and hang out. If people within the community said, hey, we want to, host our daughter's, wedding reception at your place. Awesome. That's great. Why limit the facility? Because again, we kind of created this mindset of the church is the four walls when this is the church. It's you and I. the building's a building. Let's use the building as much as we can to allow the church, the people, to be involved and give them a space to want to be excited about welcoming friends to something.
And now we have the school using it. There was a high school prom here where we have worship on Sunday morning. The night before was a big prom because, the buildings are very limited in town right now, especially with 2020 and COVID and everything. We've had people have their regional business meetings here. We've had Texas Utilities have their monthly continuing education here. We've had, of course, weddings and baby showers and birthday parties and the whole thing. We've had Young Life, another ministry in town. They had problems to their building with the freeze that came through Texas and everything busted up, and they had to just gut their facility. Well, they slid into a couple of our rooms, and they have a makeshift office here now. We have daycare, which was a huge need in the community. Still is.
And then all the young elementary kids, that there was no places for them to play basketball and have all their organized sport. And so we had a whole tournament up here. Practices every Saturday was basketball day. And for us, let's present an opportunity for people to walk. I think people's fear of church is that initially you walk in and you don't know who, what, when, where. Nothing. There's this angst within every single one of us walking into anything new. And so if we can present that this is just a facility, they've been in the facility on a Saturday playing basketball with their kid. Now it's more comfortable to be able to say, all right, I'm familiar with that. I'll come with you on a Sunday. So it gives opportunities for the members just to have more, hey, that building you're in, why don't you come with me on a Sunday too? So it was just kind of this, when we built that vision and the people got behind it, all of the finances, and there was a few other things, just some God moments throughout it all that happened, but it really was just the people getting behind this vision of, we need to be available for the community. Even
people that don't attend this church.
Yeah.
They wanted to support the vision of what we were doing for the community.
When we broadcast that we were doing this, there were individuals in the community who, I don't know if they will ever grace the door of church on a Sunday morning here. They're set, they've got other places that they attend, and they're good, that's great. But they heard that vision, and they're like, we want to contribute and be a part of that. And there were some substantial gifts that were given that really helped to make all of it happen.
From people outside of your church community.
Absolutely.
Just were like,
matching
this
situations.
Facility will be good for our town.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Have you heard of this thing called Preachers and Sneakers? There's an Instagram account out there that is shaming pastors for extravagant lifestyles and for having $800 shoes, and there's evangelical preachers that have private jets and things.
Yeah.
You've kind of grown to a size that I'm sure there's a lot of resources at your disposal. Do you worry about and are you mindful of the perception that you might be misusing resources intended for the church's mission that might be, you driving a nice car?
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so twofold with this, with Preachers and Sneakers, which some of those shoes I wish I could afford to own. I love shoes.
You would look good in those.
I'd look great.
Okay.
But I think a lot of times we just have this mentality of I give to this organization, so I then control what they do with that. And it's a scary fine line. And so with some of the preachers that they post on there, the truth is, Melissa's been given gifts and those pastors too. Some of those are gifts that are given to them, and now they can't wear them because they're going to be shamed online because they were given an extravagant, nice gift. But then at the same time, there is just wisdom in. I'm not driving the brandest, newest, nicest, whatever, because some people will get offended by that, thinking that, but they don't know that we've also had duplex. We had a duplex that we owned, and so we had rent income. And there's other things outside. Preachers and sneakers. Some of those guys have book deals and whatever. They're not buying their shoes with church money. I mean, it's outside income. But we look at that, and it's created more of an issue. I think just in general.
Yeah.
We've had people, joking about, okay, yeah, when are you buying an airplane?
A helicopter pad up on the building. Yeah.
Which, if I could, no.
Be a quicker trip back to Oakland.
Right? And for the record, like I have always, just the way I was, we always try to be good stewards. We've got 3 teenagers that we're trying to create, this, you're not going to, just because your friends don't have that, we can't do that. And not because we don't want to for you, but we're trying to be good stewards with what God has blessed us with and be smart and not just think about today, but think about the long haul financially. My gosh, even last year, again, finances were so out of whack. And I mean, I shop at Goodwill. I shop at.
Well, you can find some nice stuff.
Big, thank you. People just don't know. But it's fun for me. And so I'm the sale rack girl. I don't do it, I don't know. I mean, I love preachers and sneakers because it's comical for me, because I know that there are, of course, some people in the church, in the pastor world that they take advantage and they do, and that's a shame, and that it happens. I mean,
it's kind of calling out hypocrisy.
It is. But for us, if you know me, you know me. If you know, you know.
Right. Well, so to turn a little more serious, so Cory, your parents passed away when you were young, and Melissa, your sister's husband, passed away last year from cancer, kind of in the prime of his life, age-wise. And so I'm curious to know, on a personal level, how has times of great personal loss affected your faith and approach to your ministry? And when you are counseling people through periods of grief, especially for someone that loses a loved one before their natural time, how do you provide comfort in those situations?
We have, my sister and her family just lost Paul about 6 months ago, which was, he was ill, and we knew that we were going to lose him this side of heaven, but it didn't make it any easier, and actually we've had loss through our whole journey of stepping out. That first time we stepped out and we left Kansas and we went to Harlingen just to get out there and knowing that God had more for us. We were in our first year of marriage, and on the drive down, we didn't know that we were expecting our first child. And the day that we arrived in Harlingen, I was hospitalized, and we were probably about 9 weeks pregnant, and I had an ectopic pregnancy. And so my first, experience into stepping out in faith was loss, because something that I had waited, I was in my late 20s, and I had waited my whole life, and I saw God, starting to line up my personal life for me. And then I was like, and now we step out in faith for something that we're trying to believe in, and then we lose our faith. I'm like, what? So that was my first, and being on the border of Mexico, away from everything that I knew, it was a lot. And in those times, and every time since, and I'll let you speak on your experience with your mom and dad, but, and then God bringing beauty from ashes and turning things into good, the things that happen, then we had 3 beautiful children after we were told that, because of this surgery that we performed on you, Melissa, you guys probably may not have children, and you might have a really hard time. And then we had 3 beautiful children, perfect. Now they're teenagers and they're not perfect, just like us. But anyway, we just saw, that how God would turn that around, and then losing both of Cory's parents coming here. And as soon as we were in that small group of 40 people, there was an immediate loss of a very young man, an 18-year-old man in our congregation, which was tragic. And his girlfriend, they were both in our church. And so and then there was loss after loss after loss in our small 40 that needed. And we knew that God had brought us there to just be there for them in times. So, and then with losing Paul and everything, I don't know how people do life without the Lord. I really don't, because the only way we do personally is we just lean into what he says, who he says he is, and what he says he'll do. When you are brokenhearted, you lean in and he is there, he is near. And when you experience that nearness, there's nothing like it. And it just gives you enough light for the next step, enough for the next thing. So your question as to when we counsel people, which we do all the time, on a daily basis, we can counsel them not only from our experience. Sometimes that's the only thing you can say. I know nothing on paper makes sense. I know he says he will do it, but until you experience his comfort and his peace and all that comes from just following him and seeking him and drawing near to him, he will draw near to you. That is what we say. Like, we've lived it, and it can't be explained sometimes. You just have to share. Like when Jesus healed the blind man, that he was like, I was blind and now I see. Like I was hurting and now he has replaced all that with hope of the future, and that you can just it's not for no reason. Things don't happen for no reason. I really truly believe that. So we can help others through the same thing, because it's life and it ain't easy and it's not getting any easier. And so we just have to build relationships with people, and everybody is going through so much of the same thing that we have to glean from the people that have walked it and have hope for the future, and where that hope comes from.
Yeah, and I think with that, there's a misconception, I believe, that people feel if there's any falter or any question, then that represents a lack of faith.
Doubt.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I disagree. I think you can't have faith without doubt. There's moments where faith is messy. It's not guaranteed. There's no guarantee of if it's a guarantee, it's no longer faith. So everything's a step out. And in dealing with loss, we preach. It's a refrigerator magnet. It's Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you, give you a hope and a future. We state that everywhere. And yet what we see in life are snippets, just these little moments. Whereas what we read, what we believe, is that God has a future and a plan, but that plan is all of time. And so when I see this little snippet, I don't understand how it works out in the element of time. And so as humans, as we face these moments, these little snippets of eternity, we sit there and we question, God, I don't see how this plays out. But I think that's just as much faith. I losing my mom and dad, losing our child, and there's moments where I screamed, yelled at God. I would walk straight out. Him and I had some tough moments. I don't think he's encumbered because I one day decided to yell at him. He's God. He's bigger than that. He's not. Right. I'm not. When I sit there and doubt him, that doesn't limit him. He's sitting there going, "You're going to have to trust me." And so I'm going to work through these moments where I'm screaming and I'm yelling, but at the same time, I'm learning and I'm growing. So as people experience life, whatever fashion hits them, and I hate to sound cliche, trust God. But it really does come down to, look, I don't know. I can't explain it. And any attempt on my part to try and explain this to you, that would just belittle who God really is. I mean, because I don't know in this situation what it was, why it was. I don't know. But I'm going to trust God, and I'm going to walk with you through it. I'm going to comfort you through it. I can't give you the right answers, but I can stand with you. And for me, that's what got me through those moments as well. It was the people that were willing to stand with me and walk me through it. And now on the other side of it, I can look back and say, I see God, even in my pain, even in that storm, even in that hurt. I see what God took for what was meant to hurt me, and how God has now used that to benefit for good.
One of the ways people work through some of their pain is music, or they connect with each other. And both of you, I now know you do guitar as well. Melissa, you've been involved in music and you lead the music here. I'm curious to know about what type of music is sort of resonating with your congregation, either traditional or contemporary, and how does the music kind of complement or differ from like the spoken message that you give each week? Are you connecting with different people or with the same people in different ways?
Good question. We personally love all types of music. And here we don't have when we were doing 2 services, they were identical. We're just doing 1 service currently. And we try to, it's a contemporary worship setting, but we try to mix in, because we are a melting pot congregation of all different denominations, and people have been in church all their lives, people who are coming back and have been gone, and people who have never been in church before. And so we try to mix in hymns, traditional hymns. We try to mix in old choruses. We try to, of course, the new and contemporary worship stuff. It's just a good mix. We like to make our own style. We like to make medleys.
You do some arranging yourself?
We do.
Oh, cool.
And just make it our own. So it kind of just has a CF pair. We joke about it. We're going to learn this the way it's written, but then we're going to put a CF pair spin on it and just see where it goes. And just kind of really get together. Like, God bless us with some of the best musicians in the area. And they not only have a craft, but they have a heart to serve. And they have a heart to use what God entrusted and gave to them to, bless all these people that show up just to, to worship and just to listen and just to be a part of it. So that's the type of music we do and enjoy. We're always trying to do something different. And I will say that there are people in the congregation, they show up at the end of the music time for him, because they listen. They just want to hear him. And then they're like, music, not my thing. I just show up. And we can see them pulling in and coming in, and,
we made the mistake of putting glass walls within the area that we're currently using.
You have too much information.
We can see who's coming and going.
She says that, but I see more people leave after worship.
Okay, that does happen
as I get
too.
up to preach, there's like cars.
There are people that just come for the music, and they're like, But the thing about music is that as good as, and I don't know if you've ever listened to one of his sermons or you're listening, your group of listeners have ever heard one of his sermons, but he is gifted, and he does a fantastic job of delivering something that's relevant, something that's scriptural, but very relevant and very good. And not just because
I pay her to say that.
No, he doesn't. I listen most of the time. Some of the times, but there's only so much you can retain from spoken word, right? Like that's why he has like bullet points and like just good little 3 or 4 word, 2-word nuggets that you can take, or a series title that people hold on to. Music, on the other hand, we can say lyrics from songs when we were in high school. We were, and even if it's just coming like flowing, we have to think about what it really means, but it sticks with us. So music, since the beginning, has always been that thing that it goes where spoken word can't. It stays where spoken word can't. And it goes to our emotions. And so that's why for our church, the music is so important, because it's going to reach people. It's going to speak to people who, might not be here for any other reason in the beginning.
Right.
Well, and as well with that, again, as soon as I start thinking that people have to hear from me to hear God, I'm not hearing from God. I've missed it. There's certain people that are going to hear me and they're going to like it. There's people that are going to hear me and they're not going to like it. So presenting those things that draw people in, that's even kind of you got to be careful on that line, because worship in and of itself is to God. It's not about, well, they played my favorite song today, or I enjoyed this about it. But there is something about music that everybody is partial to. And so there's going to be people that don't like our style. And then there's going to be people that do. We try and accommodate, because it's what we love. It's what we grew up with. So we do hymns, we do stuff that we're familiar with, because there's beauty in some of those lyrics. But it's getting people to recognize, regardless of whether it's your favorite song or your style, are you worshiping God, or are you just trying to receive, a concert, have a fun time?
Right.
If you're worshiping God, now you're in tune to the lyrics. There's tune behind it. So regardless of whether it's an old hymn or whether it's a modern song, you can take that lyric and say, okay, God, it's me and you. I'm worshiping you. I'm exalting you. I'm thanking you. And that's a hard place for people to be. And so it helps to have great musicians that, that people are like, ooh, I like the drums. And eventually they'll get there. They'll recognize, as we continue to do it, that there's something different about, we're not just playing music.
Right.
There's something more to this.
Right. You're making a joyful noise.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, if people out on the internet want to check you out, who are in town, how do they come and listen to, find you on the internet?
Well, we are at CF Paris, right?
Yeah, Christian Fellowship.
You
Paris.
say it.
CFparis.church.
CFparis.church. Yes, we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We go live at 10 a.m. and then I think an hour later it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
See, this is not my department. I should not even be speaking of these things.
We'll put a little, some links on the podcast website.
Yes, we're located in Paris, Texas, and now Justin has come to visit and another classmate has come to visit. So anybody from back in the day, you're always welcome.
Yeah, they've got a very lively household.
Yes, we do.
And so it's been a joy talking to you this morning. Check out CF Paris online. You can come on Sunday mornings. You can bring your kids here to daycare, and you can come and start new programs, because Melissa doesn't have time.
That's right.
So, cool. Well, it's great to speak with you.
Thank you
today.
so
Justin, thank
much.
you.
I love what you're doing.
Thanks.
Love it.
All right. See you guys next time when we find out what happens on Seeking Context. That's my new tagline.